Hello and welcome. I'm Millicent Walker. Tonight, Southeast governors meet in Enugu over security and economic integration of the region. Former Vice President Namadi Sambo accuses the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission and the police of plotting to implicate him. Women take to the streets in Lagos to protest against cases of domestic violence in the country. And a Nigerian-born doctor opens fire in a New York hospital, killing 2 persons with several others injured.
On business news tonight, experts ask federal and state governments to embrace fiscal discipline in order to rein in inflation.
And on sports news tonight, NBA star Steph Curry agrees a 5-year mega deal worth $201 million to remain with the Golden State Warriors.
We begin tonight from Enugu, southeast Nigeria, where governors from the region have been meeting on various issues affecting the region. Well, apart from the host governor, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, others in attendance include Anambra State Governor Willie Obiano, Imo State Governor Rochas Okrocha, and Ebonyi State Governor Dave Umahi. The governors discussed security issues as well as economic integration of the region. The governors also met with major stakeholders from the region, including members of the State's House of Assembly, members of the National Assembly, traditional rulers, and religious leaders. Nigeria's former president, Namadi Sambo, has accused the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC, of trying to implicate him by attempting to plant objects in his residence. Well, the accusation comes after the ICPC and the Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigerian police conducted a raid on his Kaduna residence on Wednesday. The former vice president says the latest 5 raids at his houses, especially the unoccupied ones in the last 6 months, are part of an orchestrated plan to implicate him of a criminal breach at all costs. However, Mr. Sambo in the statement says he has duly complied with the search operations that have failed to produce any incriminating evidence. And there was a scare at the Federal Secretariat in Abuja after fire gutted a small section of the Ministry of Health, a complex that houses major government offices. Reports say the fire resulted from a spark along the corridor of the area housing the Ministry of Health. The fire was put out before it caused any further damage.
Well, actually, it wasn't a blaze. It was just a little fire spark on the 3rd floor of the ministry. Immediately when we saw the spark, electrical spark, the fire service was called in, and the fire was put off immediately. It was just on the corridor of the 3rd floor. Please, as you inspected, you saw it very well clearly. There was no office affected, no fires, no damage, no human loss.
Some residents of Arco Estate in the nation's federal capital territory, well, they have staged a protest. This is to decry the regime of estimated billings by officials of the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. They are also aggrieved over non-supply of electricity to the estate for over 2 months. But the head of corporate affairs at the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company, Mr. Oyebode Fadipe, promised that the issue will be resolved.
For some time now, this is what residents of Arco Estate in Lugbe area of the Federal Capital Territory have had to contend with. Their plight is also made worse as they have to purchase fuel at an average of 2,000 naira daily to get electricity supply. This is also accompanied by lack of installation of prepaid meters by the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company.
Close to 2 months, we have not had lights. We've been getting estimated billings, outrageous bills without light. We live in darkness. All the adjoining airports in Airport Road, they all have light, except our estates. And very few others. Most of us have paid for meter and it has never been supplied.
This perceived ill treatment by the electricity company is what informed this protest.
We don't agree. AEDC, give us light and meter.
Their complaint focuses on extortion without provision of basic services and non-metering of their houses.
April, and they play this one. Was for the second, they say that it's for the second notice, and they are placing this one too. They have already given us the first notice. The first notice was on the gate. So once they bring the second notice, they remove the first notice and place this one here. So after the second notice, they say that they will bring a prepaid meter for the second notice. And once they are bringing the prepaid meter, they see this one, they will not ask for any question again. They will not give the prepaid meter. Yes.
And since then, what has happened?
No, they have not come again.
While not absolving itself of some of the allegations raised by the protesters, officials of the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company promised to address the issues, begging for their attention.
What we are doing is to make sure that we fulfill our mandate of at least 120,000 meters per annum. We are metering customers, but unfortunately the pace at which we are metering them is not at the same pace at which the demand for it is coming. So you have a situation where demand has far outstripped supply and the pace of metering is not coping with that demand. But that is not to say that we are not metering them and we are not enjoying estimated billing at all. So we appeal to them to please be patient with us.
The assurance by the distribution company has rekindled hope that the months of waiting by these residents will soon come to an end.
A march against domestic violence has been held at the Ikoyi area of Lagos Island, a campaign to stop all forms of violence against women in Nigeria and beyond. The march, which was led by the wife of the Ooni of Ife, had many celebrities from the entertainment industry. Our correspondent Mary Alale Yusuf reports.
Women gathered at the Falomo roundabout on Awolowo Road, about to start the march against domestic violence. Security agents are on hand to ensure law and order. The wife of the Ooni of Ife hits the road at the head of this crowd because she believes enough is enough for violence against women.
If our grandparents, if they had fought for this, our generation won't be suffering from this. Emotional abuse, physical abuse is something that shouldn't be happening. You cannot have a partner that you trust and he abuses you.
In 1993, the UN General Assembly provided the framework for action to eliminate violence against women. But almost 25 years after, 1 in 3 women still experiences beatings and dehumanizing acts of physical or sexual violence, usually by an intimate partner or trusted person. Sometimes it goes beyond the physical.
I grew up in a home where I watched my dad hit my mom till she left. If my mom did not leave, God forbid, I probably won't have my kids won't have a grandma right now looking after them when I'm not there.
The message is for you to speak out. It's for us to stop this barbaric act. We can't keep dying. Emotional abuse is a different kind of abuse. It might not be physical on your body, but you know, some women actually feel, oh my God, it even hurts worse than being beaten.
But it's not only about violence to women.
I say no to violence of any sort, either emotional, financial, spiritual, whatever violence. It's never the answer. And women were so nurturing. And if a woman doesn't feel safe at home, she doesn't feel safe anywhere. Now, I know that a lot of people would think that men also do get abused, so we are also speaking out against violence against men as well.
For these women, the fight against all forms of violence goes beyond this walk.
Currently, we have partnerships with a lot of therapists, counselors, and we intend for this woman. And we have an Instagram page, which is the 1 in 3 Africa. So people can always go there, get a lot of information. We have helplines they can call.
This group also intends to sponsor a bill to protect the rights of women and are encouraging victims of abuse to speak out. The walk ends at Bar Beach. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television News.
The Ogun State Governor Pt.1 has thrown his weight behind the agitation for the payment of teachers' salaries by the state and the federal government as being clamoured for by the leadership and members of the Nigeria Union of Teachers. Well, he made his position known during a peaceful protest led by the chairman of the union in the state, Mr. Titilope Adebanjo, who the protest terminated at his office in the state capital.
The takeoff point was the Ogun State Secretariat of the Nigerian Union of Teachers. Members came out in their numbers, their protest backed by security operatives, which included the police and officers of the State Security Service. Placards with various inscriptions was a unifying factor for their demands that teachers' salaries be taken up by state governments.
Many states are still holding teachers. You can now imagine what is going to happen if autonomy is fully granted to local government. So that's our fear.
Union members took their case to the leadership of the State House of Assembly, where the Speaker, Suraj Adekunbi, assured them of support, especially when the process of constitution review gets to the final stage.
I will do everything within our ability to ensure that the position is well presented, well articulated, and we'll ensure that we come up with something that everybody will be happy about.
Their march terminated at the governor's office, where Governor Pt.1 backed their agitation to reposition primary education in the country.
If you, the teachers, within the length and breadth of Nigeria, feels that putting you under the local government will bring some what I call insecurity, particularly in terms of how you will be paid at the end of the month, then I think it calls for concern. Yes. So I'm sure the framers of the laws and what have you, when they are even enacting the law, they will look into that aspect. I don't see anything wrong in even creating a first line charge for our teachers. There's nothing wrong with it. That is our position. If anything like that can happen.
The teachers are hopeful that their demands will be met, as this will be the assurance of a steady income at the end of each month.
Elsewhere in Bayelsa State, Governor Seriake Dixon has presented a 100 million naira as take-off grant to the board of the state's Education Trust Fund. The governor presented the check after inaugurating members of the board chaired by a former Minister for Science and Technology. Governor Dixon also announced a mandatory contribution of 5% of the monthly internally generated revenue of the state to the fund.
When he assumed office, Governor of Bayelsa State, Seriake Dixon, pledged to revamp the education sector. 5 years after declaring a state of emergency on education, the current administration says it has so far invested over 50 billion naira. This is in the area of infrastructure and the recently launched free and compulsory boarding education in secondary schools across the state. Today, the governor is inaugurating the board of the State Education Development Trust Fund to manage past and future investments and ensure sustainability.
A token presentation of the sum of 100 million naira as take-off grant. Take-off grant for your operations. But every month, and by next week, I've directed the finance team to also make available to you 5% of the IGR of our state as the state's continuing monthly contribution to the trust fund.
He also believes that with the collective investment of all stakeholders, this board will perform effectively for the overall benefit of the state.
It is mandatory for every political appointee or civil servant, everybody who draws income from the state coffers, to pay a particular percentage as education development levy.
Thrilled by the political will of the governor, the chairman of the board, Professor Turner Ison, is optimistic that the board will achieve its mandate.
In part two, after the break, Federal Road Safety Corps set to begin stability tests in offending drivers on the roads. Do stay with us.